A significant amount of fighting in Ukraine continues to lead to much bloodshed. Each side plays both defense and offense. Ground is captured and lost in the conflict with no end in sight, but we do have a number of developments to report on that could affect the outcome of the war. Russia continues in its attempts to encircle the city of Avdiivka, while Ukraine has launched a daring trans-Dnieper raid in an effort to establish a new bridgehead on the Russian side. So without further delays, let's jump into the details of the events of the Russo-Ukrainian War in the time period from October 13th to October 22nd. First, in the south-central oblast of Kherson, we have reports of a Ukrainian amphibious crossing that has led to the Ukrainian penetration of the small river town of Krenki. While most Ukrainian river operations have been taking place further to the south, a crossing attempt did succeed in this unlikely location sometime between Tuesday and Wednesday, October 17th and 18th. Ukrainian forces managed to gain control over several islands between the Dnieper and Konka rivers, and as of the latest reports on Saturday the 21st, Ukraine had been penetrated into the center of the town of Krenki. River crossing operations are difficult to keep supplied, especially without a bridge, so we can expect the Ukrainians to attempt a rapid expansion in order to secure some real estate suitable for pontoon bridges. If this does not occur, it seems more likely that Ukraine will withdraw from the town and attempt to hold on to these islands they have already captured. This is one of the largest land grabs of the last week, with Ukraine securing about 12 square kilometers of territory, although much of it is marshland with marginal value. In the Zaporizhzhia region, things have still not calmed down, but before we get into those details, I would like to ask that you please consider hitting both the like and subscribe buttons. Of course, this is free for you to do, but helps me immensely in keeping the channel running. As you may have noticed, I took a hiatus from creating new content, so views will be scarce in the beginning of my return, but that is expected. I also have to contest with a growing censorship regime that is plaguing Western nations and often results in limited reach for my content. So if you would like to support me directly, please consider donating either through the PayPal link in the description or via the Superchat feature in the comments, but do not feel obligated to do so. This content is free for you to consume, but at the very least, consider leaving a comment with your feedback or ideas for future videos. Thanks to all of you that have donated so far. It does not go unnoticed, and it is highly appreciated. Russia continues to launch counterattacks, slowly wearing away at Ukraine's summer gains. Near Robotny, Russia launched an attack south of town that managed to recapture a long strip of that heavily fortified defensive line that Ukraine managed to capture over the summer. To the northeast, a similar simultaneous attack was launched, with another section of that first defensive line coming back under control of the Russians. It does appear like Russia, at the very least, is trying to undo Ukraine's keynote achievement in this sector by completely recapturing the Russian constructed fortifications. Ukraine did manage to capture some ground to the north of Verbove in an effort to continue widening the salient. A Russian assault was launched near Maliniivka to the east of Guliapol, in a typically calm sector of the front line. A couple small lakes came under Russian control, and one of the larger land grabs of the week is what resulted with around 9 square kilometers coming under Russian control. Near the settlement of Pryutny, in the vicinity of Velikonovosilka, a few small advances were made, relatively unnotable outside of the fact Russia is consistently attacking and making small gains inside of this sector. In total, for the Zaporizhzhia region, Russia has a net gain of 11 square kilometers. Keep in mind, this is not accurate. This is just based on my observations of public reporting on the situation. Also, keep in mind, Ukraine and the battlefront are very large, so this number is relatively inconsequential. We have a number of updates in the southern Donbas region. Russia continues to attack the city of Novomikhailivka, south of the long-time embattled city of Marinka. Russian troops appear to have shaken off the start of this disastrous attack and have netted several gains. Russia moved to secure its western flank south of the town, as well as making a significant progress through the minefields on the southern approach to the city. Northeast of town, a tree line with several fortifications were also captured. The only other notable movement in the southern Donbas was north of Marinka, where Ukraine managed to recapture a farmhouse lost to Russia at some point the week before. In total, Russia managed to gain slightly over 4 square kilometers in this sector. Avdiivka now has been the site of huge clashes over the last several weeks and is probably the largest and most consequential battle taking place. Initially, the Russian forces were off to a hot start, but serious Ukrainian counterattacks eroded Russia's advantage and set them back significantly in armored equipment. A number of Russian tanks and IFVs were destroyed. I cannot say exactly, but it's somewhere north of 50 vehicles, and the total arc of the battle perhaps more. This is certainly the first mass casualty event we have seen on the Russian side, very much comparable to Ukrainian failures near Robotny, but I would struggle to say it has reached that level quite yet. Perhaps it would in a few weeks if they continued to launch large-scale mechanized assaults. In the south, Ukraine took advantage of a failed Russian attack and bit off a chunk of Russian-controlled Pervomaiske. Near Severne, it seems Russia retained control of their gains and attempted to take more, but were thrown back by the Ukrainian defenders, so the front line here is roughly the same as it was in the last video. On the southeast corner of Avdiivka, Russia has made steady gains. Russian armor has been spotted by drones on the Donetsk Ring Road, and a bloody melee ensues over the fortifications nestled in the forests leading into town. North of town, Ukrainian counterattacks forced the Russians back across the railroad and initially off of the landfill, undoing almost all of Russia's initial success. This was a huge testament to Ukrainian ability to rapidly react to developing situations. However, Russia has since recaptured the landfill and now clashes with Ukrainian forces along the railroad. Because of this, Ukraine is pressuring Russia's northern salient around Krasnogorovka and is assaulting the perimeter of the rail line. In the Avdiivka sector, Russia's net gains amount to less than 3 square kilometers, but keep in mind I am not counting the territory that Russia lost to Ukrainian counterattacks because, frankly, we never really had visual confirmation of the gains in the first place, so at this point Avdiivka is a relatively even fight. In the northern Donbas near Bakhmut, we also have some Ukrainian activity. Near Klashivka, Ukraine managed to recapture the railroad station. Ukrainian troops also captured a part of the rail line south of Avdiivka. And in total, Ukraine has a net gain of around 0.6 square kilometers in this sector. Finally, we do have some movement on the northern front near Kupiansk. Russia managed to recapture some of the forests north of town previously lost to Ukrainian counterattacks. This area has been back and forth for most of 2023. However, Ukraine managed to return some of the forest belt and remove pressure from Sinkivka in a pretty significant move. Russia and Ukraine continue to battle it out on the plains to the east of the town, with both sides making some gains. This area has seen some pretty nasty battles over the last couple of weeks. In total, Russia has net gains of less than 1 square kilometer in the Kupiansk sector. If there's to be a lesson taken away from this week's reports, or perhaps the entire year of the Ukraine war, in general, I would say that a great number of good men are dying for absolutely nothing. If my calculations are correct, which they are not, then Russia gained a total of slightly over 6 square kilometers across a 1,000 kilometer front line in a week of fighting that likely had a death toll in the thousands for both sides. While subtracting the Ukrainian river crossing does make the situation on the main continuous front line appear to be more in the Russian favor, it hardly justifies the continuation of killing on this scale. I will have another report coming out at the end of the week on the overall situation, and I will do an additional additional report on any breaking news in the meantime. I have a long form video on the situation with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict also in production, and I will likely do a video on my predictions of the outcome of the Russo-Ukrainian war in the weeks to come. Thank you all for joining, and until next time.